Hi everyone. So here is Beyond Replication from Mexico, and we're going to be getting into conversation about what's been going on for us in the past 4 weeks, right? Since we arrived in Mexico almost a month ago. So here we are. How does it feel to be back?
Feels good, always. It's nice to be in Mexico. You got the sun, you got the sand, you've got the air, you've got nature, you've got people who are authentic, just living life simple.
Yeah, exactly. And now we are in the Sagittarius season. We're recording this on Saturday, so Mercury is just stationing direct as we speak. Saturn is already direct, and we are gearing up for this full moon in Gemini next week and the final months of this calendar year 2025, which
Mm.
definitely brought a lot of changes for us. I'm sure for everybody else too. And look, there is a horn out there. Spirit is talking.
Mm.
So yeah, it's been quite a wild ride since we arrived.
Yeah. So we arrived in early November, right at the tail end of Los Muertos or Samhain, and prepared ourselves in this environment by jumping all over the place, trying to find a place to land. Airbnb is a tricky game. You can never truly trust anything you read, and it's no exception anywhere I've been. But that's the price to pay for convenience. So we got settled where we want to stay. We found a place which is more home-like and comfortable, and in that meantime of all that, we went through some major transformational energies, and we had a nice ceremony in Mascota, not too far from PV, and it was very powerful. Now I know what the Elysian mysteries are, and what Hades, Persephone, and a whole lot of different types of mythologies actually mean through lived experience. So, would you like to kind of talk on what
Yeah,
some
absolutely.
things?
Like technically, like as soon as we landed, jet lagged, and we had the two huge flights coming from Bali to Europe, and then we stayed 1 week at my parents' place, and then we had another huge flight flying from Europe to Mexico through Canada, where we had like a 12-hour layover overnight, and that was literally we arrived in Puerto Vallarta 6 days before we were due to joined the ceremony with the medicinal experience and the shamans that were also present for our sacred union ceremony. So it was everything just happened so fast, and unlike the one we attended in springtime, and we really had the time to prepare because we already been in Mexico for a month. For me personally, it was like already been in Mexico 5 months, for Aaron 2 months. So we had like time because we already settled into this energy, into this environment, and we had a real time to get ready with the diet, with the meditation, with everything. Whereas here we were all over the place, ended up in an Airbnb which was completely unsuitable, but we didn't have time to really sort things out because we were like traveling again in 5 days to go to the place where the ceremony was taking place. So it didn't really feel like we had the usual time to prepare. It was just being thrown into it. And that was actually perfect. And even when we arrived, it was very disorganized. We were waiting 2 hours for a pickup and then at the end had to take a cab anyway. So it was just all completely like a different experience from the one we had in springtime. And then actually the shaman made it about us getting married and stuff, which was a surprise. We didn't expect that. So the other participant, in a sense, gave us a blessing for our union. So that was very special. And then I was under weather because I was down with some kind of flu or something. And then Aaron got it when we were coming back. So we were just like crazy energy all over there. But yeah, the experience in itself was definitely life changing. I mean, I already had the experience with this particular medicine in spring. Aaron didn't, but it was very different from the springtime. And yeah, it felt like for me in springtime it was like initiated into the process of like a not necessarily rebirth. It was for first like the process of liquidation of the past and seeding of the future, and this was more like an initiation, like okay, now the future timelines are here to be manifest. So it's more like future focused, whereas the first one was like okay, now between springtime and fall, you'll be cleaning up the past. So it was very different energy this time around.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a different experience in the spring, but the energy of that process carried over. It was like a seed. And this was essentially every experience you have is an awakening of your consciousness through emotions, the body and the mind coming into union, that holy trinity of mind, body, spirit. And this was a living embodiment of what that is through the felt presence. It was as if we were tapping into an ancient song that's within all of us. And we realize, at least I realized what pain actually is, what the polarities of existence are in a way. I mean, conceptually speaking, we're very limited, with our language and our internal language of what we can compassionate. So it was very interesting because I had read a lot of the ancient texts regarding the Greek mysteries, the Egyptian mysteries. I read about a lot of the Mesoamerican mysteries, and the combination of the shamans, the healers, the people present, other people in the ceremony, and the cows. Like outside, all the cows were like surrounding this place. You could hear them like with the cowbells and the moos. It was just so beautiful and surreal. It was just an epic experience. But living through that energy, you realize what you can put into words mentally, you realize it in the gnosis, and you realize language and explanation doesn't hold a candle to the truth of what you're unveiling. So it's almost as if there's no need to try and explain it. But I'll just say it was an amazing experience. The spirit is alive within us. It's always there. And it's about our recognition, our self-recognition, and our self-compassionation, and learning what the language is in between all of that, and how it lives through us, and how you can embody it in life. And it was amazing.
And also the fact that Aaron and I, we obviously we were being ushered into the ceremony as a beginning of our like matriarch, not much matrinomy. Yeah, that's what the shaman call it, matrinomy. Yeah. So like the whole experience was based on us embodying the kind of like the blueprint of these alternative timelines where the creation is formed from the place of love, and doesn't necessarily mean like a romantic love, but like connection, unity, and looking towards the same goal and being a frequency and alignment and stuff. Whereas many of the people that we had the honor to experience this ceremony the night with, they, in many cases, not everyone, but most, were purging the Piscean age way of being, the limited belief that it has to be through suffering and sacrifice and victimhood and hard work and stuff. So it was very interesting because when we were together, like embracing, and we could feel that the more that we were like embodying the frequency of love, the more people were like purging, like really being sick, like a lot of sick coming out. And we could understand that it's that for like us forgetting who we really are, and then when somebody else reminds us, and then it kind of like that energy of denial like makes us feel sick, like. And generally like that night I felt was the main theme for the night was like that self-betrayal and self-abandonment, like how us as a spirit incarnate into physical form had to go so far away from the true essence of who we really are in order to play this game, to be cog in a wheel. And now coming to the times with this Aquarian age and polarity Leo, where we are being really like gently pushed, like we are being really introduced that there is a different way. It doesn't have to be that hard. It doesn't have to be through this old model. And that's what we felt, Aaron and I, in our experience. Like we were embodying this blueprint, whereas the others were together as a group. We were helping to process the old blueprint, and they were embodying some of that and we were embodying some of the new one, and together both were able to coexist simultaneously because the energy was so present and potent. Yeah. You might hear all the whistles and bells out there, so
chaos.
Yeah, definitely there is a lot of that here in Mexico.
Yeah, to go along with what you're saying, it really was the energetic energies of Aquarius pulling in the previous age of Pisces into a contrasting resonance. It's like the past and the future all here now to be realized, transmuted, transformed, transcended. And because everyone was there with their personal intentions, it gave the understanding of diversity is unity. If everyone's the same, it's a monotheistic, there's no difference. One color is not full spectrum. You need everything. And so realizing what a lot of people were going through, like I could feel that masculinity, growing up, there's a common saying, it makes you gag when there's some kind of lovey-dovey stuff on a shirt or on TV.
Yeah.
And literally that's what was happening with
Literally.
people. Because I could feel such deep love for Mila. And whenever I went into that, some of the men in the group, they just started throwing, and it was when I back off, it would calm down.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm the cause of this. I'm saying it was a relational dynamic we're all tuned into. And I realized what the whole myth of Hades is, because when you're embraced in death, when you are embraced in a static, an isness of your own understanding, like I am this, that is that, it's hard to wake up and break out of that. It's like every morning when I was a kid trying to go to school or going to school, having to defeat myself just to get out of bed, and this is what it felt like. I kept rising up, standing up, and it felt like I was a newborn every time taking a step. And it was such a surreal experience to have a full spectrum recognition with other people. And seeing like, okay, now I've stood up, I've done my part, I've stepped into an energy. Now I sit and I see other people rising up and standing in their power or their authority or their own individuality, doing their thing, and then they would seat. And it was a symphony of realizations all happening at once.
It was definitely like I even shared in a group afterwards that there were so many things happening simultaneously. Like I could, I had my own personal experience, and then at the same time, I was also aware of my experience with Aaron, like us as a partners, and then at the same time, I also had an awareness of the group experience, a collective experience, and how the micro macro are continuously and constantly connected. And also, like for us, as two people participating, we felt like embodying the lunar for me, for Aaron, the solar energy, like the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine. But it wasn't, and we felt like the queen and the king, and this was like our kingdom, but nobody was lesser than, there was not hierarchy. It wasn't like I'm the king, you are the queen, and these are our peasants or slave. Everybody was equal. And just like Aaron was describing, even like people were standing in their own power, and then in their kingdom, we represented whatever we represented. So it was very interesting how everybody had the opportunity to step into this like a new version of themselves in the sun. And also as the night was like coming to, to its culmination or to its crescendo before we all then, went into bed, we could feel like people like kind of in the sense like waking up, right? Like started to yawn and stuff. And like, there was this kind of like a sense of awakening, like waking up from the sleep state, but the sleep state that is the existence we are experiencing in here, like because when I was coming into the like coming into the zone, into the, like
The
into the
medicine.
energy of the medicine, like I started yawning like crazy and I was like, oh my God, like, am I going to sleep? But it felt like, no, actually, it's not going to sleep. I'm actually waking up to understanding like who we really are. And the beginning of my journey was very unpleasant. It was very uncomfortable and I had to face a lot of fear and stuff. So there were like multiple layers, as I said, like some that were about me and my personal journey, and some that are like a journey of the union, as and at the same time being part of the bigger network of light beings being here, like us co-creating some expression. And it's no less or more or better or worse. It just is what it is, and it's all about what we in resonance and alignment with.
Yeah,
Mm.
very well said. Yeah, it was interesting. Going into the energy, I could feel the coil of pressure on my body, like a realization of another energy within me rising. And then I could see almost like a serpent, but it was symbolic, like there were symbols, no scales. It was like a sigils. And I could see the eye and I could feel the dread and the fear and the victimhood and the pain that I knew as a small child. And I knew it was always with me, always within me. And I just said, okay, I recognize you. And I stepped into this energy. It's like you can't abandon any aspect of reality. It's a full spectrum experience. If you can accept the dark, you can accept the light, and vice versa. So it was after I embraced what that energy was, the dread energy, I started to wake up and I could hear the calls, the shamans, I could hear the music, I could hear the power of the nature. I could hear the processes happening. I could feel it all in real time. And I realized I was waking up out of my initial influx into this energy, my initial initiation, so to speak, and I could see other people doing the same. And everyone was yawning at that time, and we were all kind of going through the same or a similar process in our own specific ways. And it was just so interesting. It was, you can read a lot, you can hear other people speak, you can take in information, but to live the information, to allow it to be without label is that's life. That's what it's all about. No matter what you're doing, whether you're living the mundane or going into the metaphysical mysteries.
Yeah, and also like being in that state when you are really like connected to everything and have access to any information, like you don't really need to know. You just understand everything. And then obviously afterwards, because it feels like for me, because I already been on this journey with this medicine, but we've had different ones. This was probably the highest, I could say, the highest I have gone. I'm not sure, like the most connected to light, where like my light language was really like full on force and stuff. And being able to share that with others to like help them on their journey with, with the gifts that we naturally have, but we are just unaware of, or they are suppressed, or through our ego, inferior ego thinking, who am I, and stuff like that. So I don't know, I lost the train of thoughts, what I wanted to say with that. What was I talking about? Yeah, like, so the high. So when you get so close to the light, then obviously coming back to everyday reality, like, like everybody has to, right? Like you have to come to your life, and obviously us having to have to come to that shitty, horrible Airbnb, which was just so dark and so completely not suitable for us. it was like a huge like going to like so down. So that's the thing, like when you like go so close to the light, and then you have to go so down, like so low. And then for the upcoming days, because usually those are the days where people are sensitive, and I have to be mindful of their like what they're connecting with, who they're connecting with, what are you eating, what are you surrounded with. And obviously we had our sacred union ceremony in the following days on the 11/11. So we had to go out there and be part of, like the craziness of Puerto Vallarta and everything that's going on here. And it was really, for Aaron, especially, it was like a lot of like triggers. For me, it was like a lot of like depression and nostalgia. Like for him, it was more the anger. For me, it was like the sadness and sorrow. And it is not easy. And that's why, for any medicine, like you have to be very mindful who you allow to have that experience with, like, who is your shaman, how experienced they are, how much they can support you and stuff. Because it can be very jarring, coming back to this avatar and this experience we having and everything that's going on around us, which in most cases you don't really have much control over. And it can be a very jarring fall, like, okay, and now what, like, how am I to integrate this? How am I to continue with my life, feeling like hopeless, and in a sense, like, well, what's the point, what is the meaning, So there could be a lot of that. Like, I'm not saying it's like that for everyone. That's at least what I've experienced, that even though Aaron and I got married, and that was a beautiful experience, beautiful ceremony, but that week, like the week following the ceremony was really hard. And then also because of all the issues we were having with our accommodation and trying to find a different place and things going wrong, and then having to have to move 3 times in like 10 days and stuff. It was just a lot to deal with. And now finally, exactly a week ago on November 22nd, we moved into our apartment where we're going to stay for the next 6 months. And only just now, almost 1 month after arriving in Mexico, we feel like, oh, finally we arrived, finally.
Yeah, the body
Yeah.
caught up with the spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. Right after we go back, Mila starts to feel better and I get sick. Our water isn't working. We got to figure that out. The electricity's going out, the internet's going out. I mess up my knee. And then we do the sacred union, and then so it's like just ups and downs. It was like a microcosm of the macro. So it's like within this liminal haze between the highs of the experience and regrounding into a resonance of normalcy and back into reality. There's this awareness of the contrast to like a static. You're coming out of this super dynamic into the static of a stasis of being, and in life, that's what I've come to realize. A lot of our issues are falling into statics, in the statics, that's where the demons dwell. That's where they are given an opportunity to live through you. And they're not something to be cast down and demonized. They're this full spectrum of reality. That's, you love because you feel the pain, you know the pleasure, you know the joy, you know the height because you know the low. And if you can understand that we're always on this boat floating here, then you're able to live in the Tao more consciously. You're able to fall into what they call the Yue Wu Wei, Wu Pu Wei. You can get into a sense of living without being bound to static ego projection. And in this world, it wants you to stand in the statics of your authority as it is in relation to this static reality. And the times are changing now, and it's not easy because how do you come into authority when there is really no authority out there but what we all decide is an authority? Leaders, legacies, religions, whatever that expression is. So it's now a time where you should try and heal yourself. Try and digest the experiences you've had rather than take in the new stuff. So that way, when you come into a realization with life, come into awareness with this reciprocity of your own projection, you can see where is the static within yourself. Where's the static in a situation, in an environment, in other people? And your judgments become more discernments. And discernments allow you to be more in life, more dynamic. And that's what other people are looking for within themselves, and they see it within you. Sure, they may cast the projections, and that's natural, that's normal, and that's good. You don't have to hold that. So it's just, coming to an awareness of what life can be about rather than what it is. I think it's better to have less answers in these times.
Well, or to be less attached to what you think is the answer,
Yeah.
because even like for us, it's just so tricky, to live life in a way where you just don't know anything. It's hard to make plans because anything can happen, whatever can happen, not just in your own personal life, but like with the world, with the geopolitical climates and everything. So it's just like, even just, like, what are we going to do in spring? Are we staying? Are we going? Where are we going? What are we doing? So it's just like, whereas before, especially for me, because my life was so structured, like even when I, live my life in between two continents or something, but I knew, okay, end of April, I'm off to Europe, then I'm gonna go to Bulgaria, and then come in fall, I'm gonna come back to Mexico and stuff. And this is not necessarily the case, how the story is gonna play out going forward, because it's a different story. And that's why, even like with my work, which, if you're watching this, then you might have noticed, like, well, I have not been really making many videos, publishing many videos, because there is this like a complete process of like a process of collapse of the old life, the old identity. And like we think like, oh yeah, yeah, for sure, change is good, change is good. But then when the change really hits you and you try to correct it or fix it or adjust to it the same way you always done think, like you think like, oh yeah, change is good, but let me just carry on the way I always had, like that is just not possible. So even for me, like, oh yeah, change is good. Okay, fine. We have our own place now, where we have each other, but let me just keep doing everything the same way I have always done and plan the same way I have always planned. It is just not possible, and it just doesn't work. So that's what I mean. Like, this is what potentially, probably, very likely many people might be experiencing in their own life, where things are changing. There is a change within you, around you, in the world, but you try to tackle it the same way you always have done, and it just doesn't work. Nothing works. So this is where, like Aaron said, like healing, we were being told by the shaman, you've done enough healing, now we just have to start living, like how much more healing do you want to do? It's just a matter of discernment, and obviously everybody is living their own experience. But yeah, like just being stuck in that constant process. I need more this, I need more that, more education, more courses, more healing, more psychotherapy sessions or whatever, like, this will always be part of our life. So yeah, at some point you just, have to start walking forward and see where your feet gonna take you. And I guess that's where we at.
Yeah, getting simple, so old it's new. You in these times, your authority is a lot of it is in the ignorance. You honor what you know to be true through what you feel to be true. It might not be true for other people, and it might not be easy for them, but eventually they come to their own truth through you living yours. And you got to play all the roles in existence. You can't worry about hurting other people's feelings. If you're living inauthentic, then other people don't have the right to live authentically. And it isn't easy because you have to go through the darkness, and other people have to do that for themselves too. You can help them by showing them your process, but their process will be different. And a lot of our problems is holding on to the static convictions of these trauma loop echoes, and the gnosis from other people's perspectives, the things which have been canonized as, oh, if this, then this, if that, then this. It's others versus you. It's your subjective reality versus a communal response, which we'll call objective. It's if you limit yourself to a relation of a communal expression, then that's what you become. If you climb a mountain, that's what you become. So you should become the mountain of your own ignorance and stand in that and learn. Be a student. Only a student can teach. Only a student can learn. So it's not simple, but the concept is simple, and it's good to live in a sense of authority in your own authenticity and be open to learning and correcting and adjusting and accepting. We don't have all the answers. We're here learning through the ignorance. It's a blessing and a curse.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, this perfectly ties up to the astrology because obviously all of this has been happening throughout the Scorpio season, which was a deep excavation. Because I mean, as we're becoming more aware and more in alignment with all that is, we're becoming more conscious of how literally the astrology is playing very significant role in our life, whether we are, aware of it or not. But most people are becoming aware of it. And now, as I mentioned, Saturn is already direct, and we had the first experience of Saturn in Aries in like the last 28 years or something. Same for Neptune. The first experience of Neptune in Aries is like 160 years or something. And obviously Pluto is now in Aquarius for the past 3 years on and off, but that's like since what, 18th century,
War of Independence.
Exactly. So this, you can say like, oh, this all already happened. Like astrologers will go into the like, oh, let us check what was last time, and Pluto went into Aquarius or Neptune into Aries and stuff. But it never happened like it does now. It never happened all together. And we have some incredibly significant shifts going on all in 1 year next year, with Saturn, Neptune going back into Aries, conjuncting on that energetic 0 degrees at the end of February. Then we have Uranus returning back into Gemini. Then we have Jupiter is going to go into Leo and Chiron into Taurus. And then we have the nodes shifting into Leo and Aquarius in July. So we have like literally before even the second half of 2026, we have so many significant shifts, and all of this in this year number 9, which we mentioned multiple times, the year of Hermit, the year of culmination endings, but also the 9 represent Mars. So this is all to initiate. This end is to initiate, and, just being literally on the doorstep of this year number 10, 2026, starting in 1 month's time. That is the wheel of fortune. Things are going to change, the 0 and the 1, we all becoming new fools, like creating like the magician with all that you have available to you, everything you've experienced, you've gone through, and you can create a new concoction of experience, new timeline, new experience. So that's why I feel like, yes, we can keep looking backwards forever, our ancestors, our this, our that, but they live within you, like you are living on the shoulder of your ancestor. So you don't really have to go very deep. You just have to look into your life and see what works, what doesn't. And this is literally continuation of the same story. So now is really, especially as we are in Sag season and everything moving through this Sagittarius is squaring the nodes, pointing to the South node in Virgo as the resolution, unlike Gemini season that everybody was pointing to the Pisces nodes, which said like, okay, it's time to release, it's time to heal, it's time to connect with spirit. But now it's pointing to this earth, of Virgo, which is saying, okay, now, you're going to have to put in practice. You have to start doing things, in real life. And as we are approaching this full moon in Gemini, which we just had a look at the chart, is square in the lunar nodes. There's literally both sun and the moon on the skip steps. And then we have the new moon, which will be in conjunction or something, right? In conjunction, it just... And it's going to be also like Mercury, I think, will be squaring the lunar nodes. Mm-hmm. Mercury, again, is the upcoming ruler of Uranus, the timelines. And Mercury is just now going to start to integrate what was this retrograde about, from Sagittarius to Scorpio. So we're really starting to have a deeper understanding of all the biases and stories that live in our head, this program that is keeping us stuck in this, like Aaron said, this victimhood and echo chamber and the loops of the past.
A box.
And we don't have to live in it. And in a sense, we won't be allowed and able to live in it because this timeline is no longer available. Mm-hmm. It's like, as I mentioned many times, bones are still in the grave long after you're dead, but you're gone. And this structure of reality we see now collapsing slowly but surely, step by step, the spirit is gone. It's just the bones. So in a sense, eventually the bones will be gone too. And this is the in-between where we have the opportunity to choose what do you want the new bones to be, to create this new experience. And that's why I feel for many people, like the things that are no longer working, they are so forefront in your life, so in your face that you cannot ignore them anymore. And through the contrast, you have the opportunity to choose something different. It might not be the final outcome, but it will be moving forward.
Progressing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's worlds within us are already born. You have to be your own world because the world's always world. And to put it simply, like I like to break it down to simple terms here. We have this grand mutable cross with the full moon. Okay, and as Mila said, the resolution node is Virgo, which is the transformation of Aquarius. North node currently in Pisces, that's the 12th house to Aquarius. It's the unconscious being realized. So Aquarius is the limit of conception. And the limit of conception is a very smart person until they become a genius, and that's beyond the pale. That's how you travel through into the ineffable, and only you can do it for yourself. So remember, the definitions live, but they live until you give new life to them. So you have to reinitiate the fool by falling into a new form. You can't expect other people to live to your expectation. You can't expect the systems to have your best interest, as it's been proven over and over again throughout the dawn of time. Uranus and Gaia give birth to Saturn. Saturn devours the purity of Zeus and the other gods, the energies, the archetypes, the creative essence of who we are. We must repress that so we can create community, so we can create toothpaste, rocket ships, computers, whatever. This tension is put into manifest form through our unconscious desires. So let's pull that back now. How can we be reborn of our own volition? How do we recognize the creative power which is within all of us? It's to compassionate yourself. Know your value. Know you don't have to play the tyrant, victim, martyr, savior game. Step out of the box, get off the path, go into the wilderness of the self and recreate and become your own being. And bring that into reality, and then your reciprocity of an ignorant authority and authenticity is shared with others, and they're sparked. They're given life through your example, and they too will give life to others in that way. So that's what I feel with this time. And heading into the new moon at 28 degrees Sag, that's basically in a new phase conjunction with the galactic center. And so we're bringing in this realization. We can embody this energy in the transformation of belief. You can honor the past, but you're not doomed if you forget the past. You're doomed if you remember it and keep remembering it. We don't need to deify the sins of the ancestors. We need to transform them through our lives. So make life holy.
Yeah, now I just remember that the inconjunction from the moon was to Uranus, right? The new moon in Sag, it's on 28, will be in exact inconjunction with Uranus. And we know that Uranus was a very active participant to that new moon in Scorpio that we had, that Uranus was in an exact opposition. So, I mean, the cycles are always building up on each other. And this Sagittarius new moon at December 19th or some in December 20th, depending where you are in the world, which will be right before the beginning of Capricorn, the final cardinal season of this astrological year, which will end with Aries in springtime. And everything, literally everything in Sagittarius will be like in a big cluster. There will be so many planets and they will be all squaring the lunar nodes, just like Aaron said, as we confirmed with pointing towards the south node in Virgo as the resolution. So there will be so much energy concentrated in this Sagittarius archetype, which is about the mutable fluidity of the fire. Like there is so much fire present and available, especially now coming out of the depths of the Scorpio season, where a lot of people very minded what it is that makes me feel disempowered, and it makes me feel so angry, so pissed off, like how dare this other, like the Libra, the Taurus to Libra, just like Aaron said, like the others you can't expect others to fulfill your needs or expectations because their needs and expectations are different. It's the in conjunction between Taurus and Libra. Like, all the people have different things that they care about that matters to them. The problem is that obviously if I project onto someone else, whose needs and values are not in alignment with my own, and I want them to fulfill my needs and, let go of theirs or something. So this is where, you have to know yourself in order to know where you fit, where you belong. But the way we were being conditioned is that, no, you have to become what the external world wants you to be. Nobody gives a shit about who you are and what you want, but what the world around you wants you to be, what role do they want you to play and stuff. And this is what's changing. This is what's changing, especially with Saturn now being back into Pisces, Neptune being back into Pisces, Uranus being back into Taurus, and obviously they are in sextile. We are learning to recognize Saturn in a closing sextile with Uranus, Uranus in a opening sextile with Neptune. So this is the Aquarius and the Taurus. Saturn to Uranus is the Aquarius sextile, the closing because Saturn is just about to go into Aries, which is you have to become your own authority. Otherwise, you will be a slave to some martial system, someone who will just like make you feel like I'm a child and I can't do nothing. And somebody else is the full authority over me and they can change the rules whenever because fire, right? And then the opening sextile from Neptune to Uranus, which is the foundational sextile. But we know Uranus now on this anaretic, still currently, I believe, anaretic Taurus. It's making us very aware of, since 2018, when Uranus first entered Taurus, the things that we work so hard towards and valued and thought, yeah, this is what will make me happy, having this house, this car, these 2.5 children and this job title and whatever. And now everything that happens till 2018 and fast forward 2025, almost 2026, many of us are realizing, actually, shit, I have all these things and I am not any happier, so what is this life about then? Like, what am I being sold as this bag of tricks, bag of goods, that if you have this, and this, and you achieve this and this and this, you'll be happy. And we have great examples, especially through celebrities and, singers and actors, and they have everything. And how many of them are genuinely happy, so like everybody has to take their role to show you, and you can say like, well, if I have all that money, I'll be happy. Well, these people have all that money, but it's like, obviously, like money doesn't buy you happiness. Well, better to have it than not have it, right? Especially in the world we're living in. But it just shows you how it doesn't matter where you are in your life and what you have. There will be new challenges to deal with. Okay, that the rich person maybe doesn't have the same problems you have, like, shit, how am I going to pay rent? But the rich person has to deal with issues and challenges that you don't have a clue about, because that's a different reality they're living in. So that's what I mean, so with this Uranus being back into Taurus, Saturn, Neptune being into Pisces, all this old stuff is being regurgitated for us to really look at and say, well, does this still hold a value? Is this something I want to build the future house on, the foundation? And these are not easy questions to ask oneself and to embody. But now in this Sagittarius energy, everything is moving very quickly. So none of us, and this is something that I experienced going into the medicine, that as I was not liking the experience and I wanted to be over, and there was that awareness within me that just said, just breathe, because everything is temporary, nothing will last, the good, bad, ugly, none of it. Everything is just temporary, so just breathe your way through it. And I'm not given a birth in this life, but I'm sure many women that did can attest to that. You have to breathe. You have to breathe through the process, and it will move. The situation, the tension, it will move, but you just have to keep breathing. So that's what I feel like now in this Sagittarius season is an opportunity to just allow things to play out, because the Scorpio brought a lot of shit up to the surface, literally and figuratively, Scorpio, and it will move fast. It will move fast.
Yes. Yeah, think of Uranus, at the end of Taurus now. And Taurus bridges to Scorpio as the unconscious to your beliefs in Sagittarius. So, Sagittarius is where Taurus transforms. And it's that self-value and understanding of what is it all for, if not something that I can only conceive. And it's through the feelings that you don't have an understanding of, that you're impelled to learn more, you're impelled to move and create and flourish. And it's this unconscious tension of nature which drives us. And if you break down your conception, it becomes very cold. If you just start to deconstruct it, the limits of your conception are hyper analytical and very cold. And the information that we have built our societies and ourselves upon is very cold when you analyze it. So the true value, the real information is in the lived experience and is what you bring into fertile creation through embodying life and being in true alignment with this unknown, something you can only feel, that you can't put the words to. But you know, if you're open to what that process is transforming into, you're moving in the right direction. You know, you may choose the wrong things for the right reasons or the right things for the wrong reasons, but in that process, you're going to learn.
And it's also like something that we both became very, very aware of this. The way forward really is not knowing. It is really that becoming okay with this way of living and experiencing life, which is very yin. It's very like the good example is like I share with Aaron, like with my light language, it is not a party trick. It is not like I can go on somebody's podcast and just go like do, things like some people can do, and that's perfectly fine. But the way it expresses in my body is that it has to be in response to something, and it's not something I can control. So like during our ceremony there was a person that we both assisted, we both helped in a different ways, me through the light language, and it was not something that I could like, hey ladies, like, hey, I need you or something. It was just like becoming this open vessel for the energy to be able to be embodied and act, to help, to support, to bring exactly what's needed. And I really feel that this way of living that we are on a precipice of learning to have, or learning to become, learning to be, is not knowing, just allowing. And it really is the feminine way, just like they keep saying, the rise of the divine feminine. Yes, it is also about women finding their voice, but it is not sex limiting. It's about allowing that voice within you, the inner the high priestess, which we all have, the moon, to speak through, in you and through you in a way that you can't control. It is not controlled by the ego mind. It just flows. It just comes. And this is something, like many people that experience trauma as children can probably resonate. Something that I really struggle with, because I go through a lot of trauma, and the way that I learned to live life and get through life and survive in this world was to constantly plan and control, and I need to know, and I need to have my things organized and stuff, and none of that is I'm not allowed. It's not available to me at this point in my life, and it is not easy. It is not easy to now live life not knowing, like, oh, what's going to happen next month, what's going to happen, whatever. But that is the Aquarian way, where the only way for you to live beyond the way you had lived before, which brought you to where you are, which for many people it is not necessarily the desired place, is to surrender to the unknown. Right. And that is also the square between Taurus and Aquarius, which is the first quarter square, the crisis in action. Your job is to decide what holds a value for me, what do I want, how do I experience this life, and then leave it to spirit, leave it to the things that are not in a seen form, so then they can manifest in a ways that you cannot control or predict, because then they will be limited by your past experience, and we're going beyond that with the Aquarius.
Yeah, beyond replication. The perfected replication is a beautiful thing when it's in alignment with an outcome that's desired. But when what you desire itself is a limitation, and you're not even aware of it, that's when we fall into the hierarchy and the games of limiting ourselves and others because we're not comfortable with change. And this is how we base a lot of our reality off of. So we got to learn this new language of self in relation to existence, not what it is or has been, but what it could be. And to me, the only way to try and answer that or to work towards answering that is to live an artistic life, to be creative, to fall into the flow, fall into that Leo Aquarius axis. What is the authenticity of your life expression? And let that spirit flow through you and feed the fire. And you can share that with others. You can share it with existence. You know, that's the torch that the ancestors handed up to you, the culmination of a cultivation in human heritage is, and it's in spirit. It's not in the books or what we've created or achieved. It's deeper than that. The knowledge is one thing, but living it is that's life. That's what we're coming out of. The value is changing. You know, how do you live it?
And it's also because our sense of value is changing. So it's not just the external value, like what we value in the external is changing, is because I am starting to recognize myself, you are, we all are, as something much more valuable that we were being conditioned to believe we are. We were just believe that the way most of us were brought up, not everyone, but majority, was that my value is only in reflection to how others perceive my value. Like, what can I contribute, or what am I worth based on numbers and titles and degrees and job achievements or something. So the external world always decided my value, you know, again, the in conjunction, like the external world decide my value, but it is not my value. The external world is the reflection, and they always will reflect, just like, you know, the saying goes, people will only treat you the way you treat yourself, or the way you let them to treat you, right? So this is where people are also coming into realization with these analytics of Taurus, with Uranus being on analytics of Taurus, Saturn, Neptune dancing over the analytics of Pisces, that your value is not defined by the reflection. Your value is in your spirit, in your, like, that this avatar, this physical mass that you currently carry around, this is not who you are, and this is not all that should be valued, you know, your looks or your, I don't know, achievements or whatever. That the true value of you is in your soul signature, in your presence on this planet. Just you being here on this planet at this time, you are valued and valuable. And that's why, in a sense, and this is something that I have to wrap my head around, it's like you are a cherished child of the universe, and you deserve anything and everything you desire, but it's our own limitation based on how we perceived ourselves that determines what am I worth, what can I receive, what do I deserve. Because when you were a small kid, your mom would tell you, well, if you tidy up your room, you get the cookie. If you get the A's in the school, you get this, you get that. There was always like some kind of condition, right, that we not always were able to meet, and then we were being made to feel like I'm not good enough or I'm not deserving and stuff. So I feel that there is a lot of this, especially as, you know, Uranus is going to be in Taurus until spring, until April. So throughout the next eclipse season as well, Jupiter as the co-rule of the North Node will be retrograde for another first eclipse season of 2026. So we are really having to face this, just like Aaron said, you know, Taurus becomes transformed, and he's talking about the in conjunction through Sagittarius. So I feel, you know, that's why I think Jupiter popped into my head, because we have this Uranus in Taurus and Jupiter in Cancer, which is connected to every single lunation we are experiencing until the end of June. What are the stories that we believe about who we are, about our identity, our spirit, which then determines our sense of value and what we feel we deserve to have and experience in this physical realm, because this is what I'm worth. So this is what I feel for many people is changing, and it will continue to change, and it has to change, because it's not that foundation of that limitation because of the stories you were being told, we were all being fed. It is not nurturing to allow the tree of your potential to grow from and then bear fruits.
Mm. And with Jupiter being the ruler of Sagittarius in a closing, a transformative in conjunction with this new moon, all this energy, this stellium in Sagittarius, this is an opportunity to expand the limits of your own beliefs, of your own sense of self, and feel deeper into who you are or what it means to be alive, what that entails, what gifts, what is the curse worth? What is the gift of this life? How do you cultivate that? How do you realize it and share that? And you don't need to share it consciously. You could do that just through pursuing what that could be for you, pursuing your own change consciously, making decisions which are more in alignment with who you would like to become, what you would like to become, what you would like to feel and experience. And when you meet reality with that spirit, you're ready for anything. And that's what this reality wants. If you don't use attention, it uses you. All our leaders, all these systems of control and constraint, it's like when you're going down a roller coaster, a lot of people hang on tight. They want to control the change. They see what's coming. They can feel this urgency and it's natural. But if you hold on to the past, you're not going to live fully. You're not flying out of the roller coaster. You're locked into life. But you have to release in order to know it. And that's what I feel this Jupiter energy can bring for us. And that's the unconscious effort that we see through Aquarius in these times.
Yeah, it's like what just came to me was like you will never know that you have wings until you allow yourself to fly.
Mm.
And obviously that is a metaphor. Don't go jumping out of the window.
That starts off something small. Don't go to
Like
the
so
top of a
far.
building. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It's like the Bill Hicks. He had a joke about people taking LSD and trying to fly off of buildings. And he's like, why do you start from up there? You got to start from something that's a little lower to earth. Why? So, other people's limitations, their choices, don't let them be yours. Just allow yourself to make wise mistakes. Go through your process of growth and evolution. Don't allow other people to dictate what that is.
Mm. Yeah, so that's a good guidance for the final months of the year 9.
Yeah, that's true. Getting
Cool.
into that. All right. Well,
Awesome.
you want to put an end to this one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's
Mm,
this the Black Friday weekend. If
mm,
anybody wants to connect and get some kind of guidance from two people who are living life as you are on the same journey, in some ways maybe ahead, in some ways behind, then yeah, you can connect with us, either me or Aaron or both of us. You can find all the services on my website and also our combined service, Alchemical Metamorphosis Process, and everything is currently discounted until midnight Pacific on Cyber Monday, which is December 1st. So yeah, if you would like to connect at the reduced price, this is your opportunity. And apart from that, I wish everybody a wonderful final months of 2025. And yeah, just
mm.
hold on tightly, maybe not, like Aaron said, let it go.
Yeah, and consider other people, such as us or your world. It is a screen which your consciousness is being projected upon. If the people and the situations are very small, limited, myopic, it's not going to be able to hold the expanse of who you are and what you're becoming. So take that into consideration in these times and seek more perspective than that which you're comfortable with.
Yeah, that's true. Like a lot of us are living very small lives,
Mm.
very limited experience and existence. So that's why, like, even for us here in Mexico, we want to branch out,
Yeah.
connect with more people and communities and stuff. So yeah, just keep moving.
Yep. All right. Well, Thanks for watching, listening, and being, and take care, everyone.
And we'll see you in the next one, whenever that is. Bye, everyone.